Thank you, Edith. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please be seated. Mr. President, what he hadn't told you today, he had to delay his vacation to be here today. You heard Biden's coming from, oh my God, when's he coming? But so you can show me around McHenry County College. I'm glad to be here with great Illinois leaders. I want you all to, you know, America's back. America's back. And in no small part because of the men and women that I serve with. Governor Pritzker, stand up, man. It's a good man. If you really want someone in the foxhole with you when you're in trouble, you want Senator Tammy Duckworth. Tammy? And the guy I rely on more than anyone else in the United States Senate, and I've served with him for years, we have a lot in common in terms of losses as well as gains, is Dick Durbin. Dick? And Congresswoman Underwood, who got me a passport for the town. Her mom and dad are mildly proud with good reason. With good reason. Actually, Mom looks like her sister. Last week, I was up in Wisconsin to talk about a bipartisan agreement to modernize American infrastructure, and in the process, create millions of good-paying jobs. That's not my estimate. That's Wall Street estimates. That's everybody's estimate. Millions of good-paying jobs. Not $7, not $8, not $10, not even $15 an hour. Good, prevailing wage jobs. And here's what it means for Illinois. You've got, like many states, all states, you've got 2,374 bridges and over 6,200 miles of highway that are in disrepair. As a result, every driver in this state pays a hidden tax, about $600 per year in wasted time and wasted fuel because of the nature of the roads and bridges. And by the way, you're better than a lot of states. Not to mention the challenge of getting to work or getting to a daycare center on time to avoid that late fee when you pick up your child. Your governor has an ambitious infrastructure plan, and under a bipartisan infrastructure agreement, we're going to make the biggest investment in roads and bridges since the construction of the interstate highway system, literally creating millions of good-paying jobs. And God willing, we're not going to have 40 weeks of this is infrastructure week. Remember those? Think what it will mean to McHenry's entrepreneurial agricultural program if you can get products more easily to Chicago. Or think about how much easier life will be when it's quicker to drive on Randall Road. Look, this agreement also allows us to replace every lead pipe and service line in America, benefiting 10 million homes. It's going to address lead exposure in 400,000 of our schools and daycare facilities where children drink that water. This would be the largest investment in clean drinking water in American history when we pass it. And one in every 10 people in Illinois lacks access to high-speed internet. The bipartisan agreement that Dick and others have made sure we're getting, the agreement allows us to connect every American to reliable, high-speed, affordable internet. Every single American, rural and urban. And by the way, those of you who are parents who had kids at home, tell me what internet means this last year, if they're school age. Well, from 2010 to 2020, Illinois experienced 49 extreme weather events. Although I heard today from the senator north of here that the Republican senator, there is no global warming. Just so you know, there's no such thing. But those weather events cost this state roughly $50 billion in damages. And we're going to upgrade the electric grid to make it more resilient to extreme weather and other threats. There's a lot more the agreement's going to do to encourage the physical and ensure the physical infrastructure lays the foundation for a strong and durable and sustainable competitive economy. But what I want to talk about today is human infrastructure. It's essential to that foundation as well. To truly win the 21st century and once again lead the world, to truly build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, to truly deal everybody in this time, we need to invest in our people. We need to invest in our people. That's why, in addition to the bipartisan infrastructure agreement that I believe we're going to get done, I'm here to make a case for the second critical part of my domestic agenda. It's a combination of parts of my American Jobs Plan that were essential and not included in the bipartisan infrastructure plan, as well as my American Families Plan. In Washington, they call it a reconciliation bill. That's a fancy way of saying, with a filibuster that our friends on the other side use constantly, more than ever been used in history. It means you got to get 60 votes to get anything done. We're a 50-50 Senate with a vice president who happens to be a Democrat. And back in the campaign, you know, I said we're going to build back and we're going to build back better. We can't just build back, we got to build back better. And today I want to outline some of the key pieces of this Build Back Better agenda and what's it going to do for the people of Illinois and the people of the United States. It's about a country, once again, that inspires and leads the world, the opportunities we provide, the cures we discover, the technologies we pioneer, and the industries we create. You know, and the nation that leads the world in combating the existential threat of climate change. The Build Back Better plan agenda starts with education. You know, one of the reasons why we were the leading country in the world for so long and still on the edges is because we're the first industrial nation in the world to allow 12 years of free education back at the turn of the 20th century. But everybody's caught up. At the time they were debating what should be education in America, the argument was there should be 12 years of free education. And that's what got us ahead. That's what had us leap ahead of the rest of the world. But as I said, today everybody's caught up. Does anybody think in the 21st century, with the change that's taking place in technology and across the board, that 12 years of education is enough to be able to live a middle-class life? I don't think so. And so the fact of the matter is, I've decided we should have a minimum of 14 years of education. 14 years of education, which I'll explain in a second. You know, as the First Lady, I'm Jill Biden's husband, but as Jill would say, and she's a full-time community college professor while being the First Lady, she often says any nation that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. Any nation that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. That's why I want to guarantee an additional 4 years of public education for every person in America, starting with providing 2 years of universal, high-quality preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds, building on what the governor has been doing here in Illinois. In the last 10 years, studies out of the great universities, study of a high-quality program here in Chicago, found that low-income children participating in preschool were 47% more likely to earn an associate's degree or higher and get through school without any difficulty. We have to build on that foundation for future success. And then I want to add 2 years of free community college for everyone. And we can afford it. I'll tell you how. That could boost earnings of high school graduates with low-wage jobs by nearly $6,000 a year on average.
And just want to give some of our viewers a heads up. You may see a quick 2-minute commercial break. We'll still be listening into Biden's remarks here in Illinois when you return.
But it's not just tuition that's expensive. As was pointed out, living expenses, housing, meals, transportation. And that's why I propose to increase the maximum Pell Grant, which if you are below a certain income, you qualify for a Pell Grant, from about $6,500 a year to $8,000 a year. And that will fill it out. I know that here at McHenry, you have a dual enrollment program. So students from places like Woodstock High School and other high schools, you get credit for taking college classes here. Well, my plan will provide resources to expand programs like the one you have here. My plan we'll also do more to invest in high-quality job training and apprenticeships in fast-growing sectors like public health, childcare, manufacturing, information, technology, clean energy, so that all Americans can get the skills that employers want that lead to good middle class and, I make no apology, union jobs. We'll also make strategic investments in teachers, in the teacher pipeline. Because even before the pandemic, our school system was 100,000 teachers short here in America, particularly in high-demand areas. Our children are the kite strings that lift our national ambitions aloft, and our teachers are the ones that help them believe they can do anything. I'll bet every one of you, success, can name the teacher that helped change your life. I'll bet every one of us, or somebody came along and made us believe in ourselves. That's the really secret of teachers. My plan will reduce student debt for future teachers, double the size of annual federal scholarships for future teachers. We'll also support $100 billion in-school infrastructure improvements, including community college, to make sure that they are safe and healthy places for learning, and that all students with labs and technology they need to be able to compete in the 21st century. Of course, an ability to take these jobs often depends on the availability of childcare. As a single father, when I first got to the Senate, I had 2 young boys who had just lost their mom and their sister in an automobile accident. If I hadn't had the family I have, my younger sister, my best friend, and my brother, and my mom help out, I couldn't have done it. But not everybody has that kind of support. I just toured your Children's Learning Center. It's an amazing resource. Students and faculty can have their children cared for. Students can earn their associate degrees in early childhood education as well. High-quality child care options should be the rule, not the exception. So on my way here, I met with Mike Sayre, who wrote me a letter about his struggle to find affordable child care. And he wanted to know what my plans were. Well, Mike, I hope you know now, here we are. My plans to provide access to quality, affordable child care with more child care centers and community college campuses, with new and upgraded child care facilities all across the country. Businesses will get a full tax credit to build on-site facilities. And the reason they want to do that is not just to be nice. Because studies show when there is an on-site child care center, businesses have less employee turnover, less absenteeism, and higher productivity. It's overwhelming in their interest to do it. Middle-class families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high-quality child care for children up to age 5. And the most hard-pressed working families won't have to pay a dime. My plan will also invest in child care workforce with better wages, benefits, and training opportunities. Look, they're also going to give parents the option to take up to an $8,000 tax credit to cover child care expenses if that's the preferred route. That's good for families and is good for the economy, and it will create more jobs. My plan will also provide up to 12 weeks of paid family leave for medical care. The 12 weeks of paid family leave. Look, we're one of the few major economies in the world that doesn't cover paid family and medical leave. And the most difficult moments someone will ever face, no one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck and take care of someone you love, a parent, a spouse, a child. Look, we'll tackle the maternal mortality crisis as well that impacts on Black and Native American mothers disproportionately. And I want to thank Congresswoman Underwood for her leadership in this area. That's for real. As I've said again and again, people who really need a tax break in this country are America's working families. It's time they get a tax break. So my Build Back Better agenda would extend expanded child care tax credit we passed under my American Rescue Plan. Those of you who have children under the age of 7, you're going to get and depending on your income and your income taxes, you're going to get a cash payment back. Up to now, guess what? You get $2,000 to declare a dependent, If you have 2 children, you get $4,000 off a $10,000 tax bill. It's important. But if you don't make enough money to be able to owe that kind of tax, you don't get a tax credit, you don't get anything. Well, under this proposal, guess what? You're in a situation where if you have a child under the age of 7, you get back $3,600 in cash. In addition to that, those of you who are in that situation are going to start to see that coming in by the end of this month on a monthly basis. It can change the lives of people. Starting next week, families will begin to receive one of the largest ever single-year tax cuts aimed at families with children. And every child under the age of 6 is $3,600. Every child between 6 and 17 is $3,000. It's not as a credit against your taxes, but as a direct payment. You'll get cash. Cash. That's what we'll get. For example, a middle-class family with 2 children can expect to receive $7,200. You get the first half, the $3,600 paid out, at $600 a month between July and December, and you get the rest between January and tax day. With this one tax cut, every study shows that child care is cutting poverty in half by 40%. Families with children who qualify for this, it cuts poverty by 40%. So let's extend the tax cut at least through 2025. And let's expand free meals for millions more children in school. With the assistance during the summer months when they don't have access to those school meals. We support families with children. We also need to provide greater dignity for our nation's senior citizens who care for them. Look, there are hundreds of thousands of older adults and people with disabilities who need home and community-based care services. They qualify for it under Medicaid, but there's a backlog of thousands of people. But one study showed that $3,000 spent helping a senior stay in their home by providing, it saves the country more than $20,000 a year in medical cost. At the same time, more than 1.5 million Americans work in home care. They're disproportionately women of color and immigrants, and those jobs are among the lowest paid in the economy. 1 in 6 home care workers lives in poverty. We need to do better on both sides of the equation. My plan expands home care for the older and disabled Americans while improving jobs and pay for home care workers who care for them. And here's the deal. You save a lot of money if you don't have to go to a home. Keeping people in their own home, mentally and every other way, is a benefit, a significant benefit for the community as well as cost. We also need to continue to make health care more affordable. When we lowered premiums and expanded coverage for the My American Rescue Plan, more than 1.5 million people signed up for what used to be called Obamacare. I want to make these premium reductions permanent so we can get even more people covered. We need to deal with a shortage of affordable housing in America. Over 10 million renters in this country pay more than half their income for the rent on their apartment. And the lack of affordable housing prevents people from moving to communities where there are more opportunities. So we're going to make historic investment in affordable housing, increasing and improving the housing supply by building and rehabilitating more than 2 million homes, especially in places that need more housing. And we need to invest not just in the physical and human infrastructure of today, we need to invest in jobs in the industries of tomorrow. 3 decades ago, and this always disturbs me, even just repeating it, 3 decades ago, the United States was #1 in the world for a share of their GDP being invested in research and development. We were number 1 in the world. We're now number 8 in the world. Number 8 in the world. China was China was number 9 in the world. Now they're number 2 in the world. Folks, Democrats and Republicans agree we can't afford to lose this race. They came together in the Senate in an Innovation and Competition Act that Dick was very much a part of to help us grow the industries that win the jobs of the future. We need to lay the foundation for the next generation of American jobs and American leadership in manufacturing and technology. We're going to invest in historic black colleges and universities under minority-serving institutions. Because while these schools may not have the endowments or the labs needed to generate these jobs, these students are just as capable of learning about all the things that are going to provide the jobs of the future. And of course, no challenge is as urgent as climate change. Last week, I met with 8 governors for a better part of an hour, all from the western states, Republicans and Democrats. They're facing extreme heat, record drought, and a fire season that threatens to be much longer, more dangerous, and more destructive than ever. Last year, for example, more than 10 million acres burned in the West. 10 million acres, not counting the lives lost and homes lost. More land that exists in my home state of Delaware and my neighboring state of Maryland combined. So if a fire swept through and took out every single thing in the state of Delaware and Maryland. The drought conditions this year are twice as bad. You've seen the pictures. Reservoirs that are 40 feet down, 50 feet down. The extreme weather isn't just in the West. In Illinois, farmers downstate are dealing with more frequent droughts. And 2 weeks ago, just south of here, you just had a nearly unprecedented tornado. We can't wait any longer to deal with climate crisis. We see it with our own eyes, and it's time to act. The bipartisan agreement we reached makes some major strides. It's going to allow the transition of thousands of old, for example, diesel school buses and buses, city buses. We're going to change them to electric buses. There are roughly 500,000 of these iconic yellow school buses on the road today. 95% of them run on diesel, for example. And diesel pollutes the air and is linked to asthma and other health problems and hurts our communities and causes our students to miss school. I'll put Americans to work capping tens of thousands of abandoned oil and gas wells that are leaking methane. It's devastating. And the wages to cap these wells are the same wages it took to dig the wells, making people be able to earn a prevailing wage to do it. There's thousands of them. But we need to go further. I want to provide tax cuts for businesses and consumers who invest in clean energy technologies like renewables, battery storage, next-generation aviation fuels, electric vehicles. I want to set a clean electric standard that moves us to a fully clean and reliable grid. These steps are going to create good-paying union jobs and spur demand for domestic manufacturing, accelerating clean energy and clean cars, growing our capacity to build those technologies on factory floors with union workers here in the United States. And we create a new generation of jobs in clean energy manufacturing. I also want to enlist a new generation of climate conservation and resilience workers, like FDR did when the American work plan for preserving our landscape with the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's a similar thing. We can put Americans to work strengthening public lands and waters and making our communities, rural and urban, more resilient against extreme weather. And we can take on the long overdue work of advancing environmental justice by addressing pollution. My plan is also going to give grants to spur innovative policies and land projects, local projects like installing community solar and storage and disadvantaged communities, replacing street lights that are made in America with LED bulbs that cost a whole lot less and last a whole lot longer, making upgrades in homes and school and community centers to boost energy efficiency and cut electric bills. Folks, I've laid a lot of plans here, but that's because it's time we have to think bigger, we have to act bolder, and we have to build back better. When we passed the American Rescue Plan, the naysayers, the doubters said it wouldn't work. Well, we created over 3 million jobs since I took office. More jobs in the first months of a presidential administration than any time in American history. And last week, the Congressional Budget Office doubled their projections of the 2021 economic growth from 3.2% to 7.4%. And the OECD thinks it could be higher. That puts American Rescue Plan and our work is going to move forward to do a lot of things, including we're close to defeating the virus. The last time the economy grew at this rate was in 1984, and Ronald Reagan was telling us it was an American morning. Well, this is going to be an American century. With my American Families Plan and the other elements of the Build Back Better agenda, experts in Wall Street, analysts have said that we'll create millions of good-paying jobs for years and decades to come, not just in the near term. So I'm going to be making the case to the American people until the job is done, until we bring this bipartisan deal home, until we meet the needs of families today and the economy of tomorrow, and we can pay for it. Let me give you a rough example. This isn't, by the way, the plan for infrastructure is paid for. It's paid for. And this plan that I'm talking about, which is really expensive if you add it all up, well, guess what? The fact is that it's paid for as well. And let me tell you how we're going to pay for it. Some of the ways to pay for the rest of it is the last couple of years, for example, 55 of the Fortune 500 companies making billions of dollars did not pay a single penny in taxes, not one single cent. Well, I don't want to punish anybody, but everybody, and I hope someday my grandchildren grow up to be billionaires. That'd be wonderful, especially for a guy who for 36 years was listed as the poorest man in the United States Congress. But having said that, all kidding aside, everybody has to pay their fair share. I'm not trying to gouge anybody. Everybody has to get in the game. If we put in place a minimum 15% tax on the profits of corporations, the ones that didn't pay any tax, that would raise $250 billion, $240 billion. There's a loophole in the system called stepped-up basis. That loophole goes that if I made a capital gains and I was a wealthy person and I was going to cash in my stock and I was going to have to pay a tax, I was going to make, $400,000 and I was going to pay X amount in taxes. If on the way to cash it in, I get hit by a truck, God forbid, and died, and I was left to my daughter, there'd be no tax paid. It's not an inheritance tax, it was a tax due 10 seconds earlier. We close that loophole, that saves us $400 billion a year. Not a year, $400 billion over this period, which is enough to pay for the child care tax credit. If we end tax breaks for fossil fuels and make polluters pay to clean up the messes they've made, that would raise $90 billion. I'm not asking them to do anything that is unfair. Just not going to subsidize them anymore. They're doing well, thank you. And the messes they made, they should clean up. Well, if we ask the top 1%, and I hope many of you are in the top 1%, maybe. That tax cut that was passed in 2017 was all raised the deficit by over $2 trillion, not a penny paid for, and it didn't come back with anything. In fact, that entire $2 trillion, the vast majority went to the top 0.1% of the American people. 1%, if we just, 1%, the folks in the top 1%, if they just paid their personal income tax the same as it was under President George W. Bush, that would generate $13 billion a year. It would raise the tax from what it is now, 35 to 39%. It's not like this idea, where you listen to the guy who used to have this job, and somehow we're gouging people. The fact of the matter is, a lot of you, if you're a plumber and a teacher, you're probably paying at 25, 26%. Some of you will be paying higher. But here, look, it's enough to provide for that one change, enough to provide for 2 years free community college for every student in America. Now, people say that one of the purposes of taxes is to also generate growth along with making sure that we can pay for our basic needs. Well, let me ask you, what is more likely to grow the economy and enhance us? Continuing the tax cut at 37% or having to pay 39.5%, generating economic growth because now you have a tax system that will allow millions of students to go to community college. When I was with Barack as vice president, he asked me to do a study, and I spent, your sister, Penny Pritzker, was part of my effort to taking care of it, and the effort was simple. We came along and we said, okay, what do we interviewed 347, don't hold me the exact number, of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. Said, what do you need most? You know what they said, almost to a person? I need a better educated workforce. They're not prepared to pay for it. Imagine if we present the world and the nation with a better educated workforce. It helps everybody. The point is, we pay for our entire plan to make the tax system fair for all Americans. It's about time. There's a lot of work ahead of us to finish the job, but we're going to get it done. We're going to reimagine what our economy and our future could be and show the world, just as importantly, we'll show ourselves that democracy can deliver. The people of Illinois and the people of America and the world can lead again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know that's a boring speech, but it's an important speech. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. And excuse my back. I apologize. Thank you.